promotional skills comes from your work ethic or how responsible you are as a worker. And the concept of a work ethic is that hard work is its own reward and valuable by itself. So when everyone goes into an interview, pretty much everyone says, I'm a hard worker, because that's the image that we want to project. Finance and technology innovator Richard Swart says, don't be upset by the results you didn't get with the work you didn't do. A strong work ethic is going to be expected from us by any employer. So let's discuss that. All right, in this picture, we see a custodian. So my question is, what are some ways that this custodian can demonstrate his sense of responsibility in his job? If someone can unmute and tell us what you think.
Hey, Chris, it's me, Richard.
Hello?
Hello, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you can tell he's in the maintenance janitorial career.
Okay, so how can he show us that he's a responsible worker?
Well, he has his uniform, he has his gloves. Has a smile, that's for starters.
Okay.
I'm just saying, if he's mopping, I don't see the signs on the floor. I still see them folded on the cart. So.
Okay, so making sure that safety precautions are in place.
Yes.
You mentioned that he's wearing the uniform, he's wearing protective gloves, so
yes.
I mean he's taking that seriously.
Exactly.
Yes, those are actually great components of showing you're responsible. If you are making sure that you're there on time, making sure you're doing whatever you're asked, completing your tasks, all of those are great ways to show that you are responsible.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you for that answer. So, like we just mentioned, there's a lot of approaches to completing our job duties, which we can break down into different categories. So for all of these skills, we're going to imagine that we're different jobs. So for this one, let's pretend that you are a building inspector, and we're going to see how these categories of responsibility apply. So the first one is reliability, which involves our punctuality, attendance, and dependability. If you show up for every inspection as scheduled, on time, and you can be counted on, you are considered a reliable employee. Dedication is our loyalty to the company. Now, loyalty can be demonstrated in many ways, from supporting your company's inspection process to perhaps working an extra shift to fill in for an absent coworker. Attention to detail is our effort to complete quality work. If you perform every inspection thoroughly, you are ensuring that the house you're inspecting is safe and habitable. Efficiency is completing work in a timely manner. So as an inspector, you not only need to maintain high standards, but you'll need to inspect a certain quantity within a specific time. Willingness to learn is how teachable we are. So when a new inspection standard is introduced or a new item is added to your inspection list, you need to be willing to learn eagerly from your trainers and supervisors. And finally, accountability is taking responsibility for our work. So it's important in our jobs that we're very clear as to what falls exactly under our responsibility. For that reason, if you're held accountable for certain inspection duties, you have to make sure that they are completed. Now, having a good work ethic not only impresses our boss, but it also impresses our coworkers. Except maybe for those coworkers who don't have a strong work ethic themselves, because it makes them look bad. So going hand in hand with our work responsibility is our attitude. And actually, Richard mentioned this with the previous one, having a smile on your face. That's important. One of the biggest factors in how our workday goes is the attitude of the people around us. So if your coworkers are greeting you warmly and they have a bright smile all day, that definitely hits us differently than working with someone who has that nasty attitude or they're just drudging through the day. So similarly, keeping a positive attitude is an important part of networking during a job search and just in general. And something that drives a good attitude is our motivation to serve others. As Dr. King says in this quote, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? we have a big impact on ourselves and those around us with our approach to our work. So in this picture, we see a home health aide. Now, a home health aide obviously has certain technical duties they need to perform, but why is a positive attitude another part of her responsibilities? What do you think about that?
This is Jiffy coming off mute. Because it impacts the customer, the patient, and if you're coming in with a negative attitude, that could definitely impact the outcomes for the specific service, especially when you're dealing with medical things, but just in business in general, if you don't have a positive attitude, that impacts your coworkers and also your customers.
Yes, excellent answer, and you're absolutely right, particularly, like you said, when you're dealing with medical matters, it's going to impact the patient if you're coming in with a bad attitude, because that patient may be nervous, so you want to soothe them, you want to make them more cooperative in their healthcare, and demonstrate that you really actually care about the patient. So, thank you for that answer. Now, keeping that positive attitude is so important, but it's not always easy. So as an example, let's look at a place that we don't really picture when we think of fun, the Department of Motor Vehicles. So we're going to use the WAMI, which is the Work and Meaning Inventory, to see how a DMV worker can make it a positive experience for others and themselves. So the first aspect of this is having a positive mindset, which means choosing to love what you do. As the saying goes, you may not be able to have the job you love, but you can love the job you have. As a motor vehicle agency worker, you may find enjoyment in filing forms, working with people, or other things like that. Now, the personal reward aspect is knowing that our work positively impacts us. Now, of course, with any job, you get the salary and hopefully benefits from your position, but there are other things that you get as well that might not be as immediately apparent. You get security from having a steady job. I know from periods of time when I've been out of work, it is so wonderful to be able to get up and have a workplace to go to every day. So that security from having that steady job, building connections with other people, gaining specific skills on the job, all of those are things that are personal rewards in addition to your salary and your benefits. And finally, the service motivation is knowing that our work positively impacts other people. So helping people get their licenses, helping them renew their registrations, and other functions that you would perform are useful and necessary services for the public. And really, just about any type of employment is going to benefit somebody in some way. Now, as human beings, we do have feelings and we can't be a ball of sunshine every day, but having that service orientation as a general guideline will help us keep that positive attitude on a regular basis. Now, along with a sense of responsibility and a good attitude, we hope that people have some kind of moral compass that tells them the difference between right and wrong. And whether we get this from our parents or guardians, learn it from friends and associates, or figure it out for ourselves, we're always going to be faced with ethical questions. Now, if our boss is sitting right next to us, we're probably not going to be checking social media on our phone or stealing the office stapler. In that case, the choice is easy. But wildlife conservationist Aldo Leopold says, ethical behavior is doing the right thing when no one else is watching. Now, what is the one thing you are told to never do on a resume? Everybody shout it out. What are you told never do on a resume?
Never lie.
Never lie, yes. And yet, more than 1/3 of Americans admit to having lied on a resume. So when everyone's sense of right and wrong is a little different, how do we have a rule that applies to everyone? Now, in this picture, we see a biologist, and typically this is not a field where we think of someone facing a lot of ethical decisions, but she is going to face ethical decisions, such as being honest about her research so that other people can rely on it, not taking credit for someone else's work, etc. So we can really boil this down to two simple ideas, and we can actually reach back to childhood sayings that express these. So please go ahead and type in the chat feature the 2 words that complete these phrases. Always tell the blank, and respect and blank have to be earned. Go ahead and write in the chat what those 2 words should be. Okay, Stacy got it real fast. Yes, Stacy. Always tell the truth, and respect and trust have to be earned. Absolutely correct. Yes. You were all taught well. So being honest on the job seems like it should be simple, but if we make a mistake, we may be tempted to lie out of fear. If someone's a good worker, though, most employers appreciate when an employee is honest about a mistake and will use it as a learning opportunity. So if you do something wrong, own up to it. And this leads to the idea that we should be trusted. Now, some people consider it a greater compliment to be trusted than to be liked. And that makes sense in the workplace. Ideally, we would like to be both trusted and liked, but ask yourself, you don't have to answer this out loud, but ask yourself, if you could only be liked or trusted in the workplace, which would you rather be? So even though the meaning of integrity might vary from person to person, we can try to be honest and trustworthy the best way we know. Now, in addition to the qualities we want to have at work, there are emotional skills that are desired by employers, like self-motivation and taking the initiative. Anyone who's looking for work is very familiar with the challenge of self-motivation. And once you're in the job, you may want to become familiar with the company culture before you take a lot of initiative, but at a certain point, employers want you to be independent enough to take action on your own. This quote recommends, do something today that your future self will thank you for. And taking the initiative is a great way to move ahead professionally. So in this picture, we see a real estate agent. So this is a simple question. For a real estate agent like this, why would initiative be an essential skill? What do we think?
Chris, because he's selling houses and he's right behind the house.
Mm-hmm.
So he's taking his job seriously.
Okay, so why is initiative important for him in order to sell homes?
If he wants his commission, I'm just saying,
That's it in a nutshell. If you need to grow your business and get that commission, yes.
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I was saying initiative, you have to be positive. People feel your spirit, they feel your enthusiasm, and that makes them interested, eager.
Yes, that's a very good point. If you are working for yourself, you need to build up a solid reputation, and having that kind of enthusiasm, like you said, will help establish that you are the go-to person. Because remember, when you're doing a job like this, you're competing against other agents as well. So you need to make sure that you are growing your business by going out there and getting that business. Yes.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you for those answers. Now, there's a lot of ways to motivate yourself, but one strategy is the Kotelnikov Self-Motivation Guide, which has 3 parts. And to illustrate those 3 parts, we're going to imagine that you have a job as an online influencer, and you post videos for a popular clothing brand. So let's see how those 3 parts would apply. Now, the first motivator is drive, and that's about being excellent. And rather than being an external motivation of being told to improve by your boss, this is about showing an internal motivation by always striving to do better video posts. Now, the second motivator is commitment, and that's about understanding and dedicating ourselves to both the goals of our employer and our personal goals. So in this case, for the clothing brand, this means posting videos that meet or exceed the requirements, but also fulfilling your own goals, your own standard of excellence.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, we have proactive optimism, which is about pursuing opportunities whenever they arise and treating challenges as growth opportunities. So as an influencer, you could approach your boss with ideas of what to promote and how to do that. And if you encounter a setback, then you just take it in stride and you have confidence in your own abilities. And if we show that we can try to overcome any challenge, who knows where that confidence can take us? Another emotional skill that employers prize is flexibility. In today's workplace, conditions change quickly, and employers want someone who can adapt to whatever they require. Now, most employment contracts have a statement like, perform other duties as needed in the list of responsibilities, so we are sometimes asked to step outside our area of specialty. Astronomer and computer programmer Paul Ludis tells us, the most successful people are those who accept and adapt to constant change. And we're going to take a look at a number of ways to be adaptable at work. In this picture, we see a soldier. And for our brave citizens who serve in the armed forces, they frequently have to be flexible because of changing circumstances. So for this soldier who is in a combat situation, what are some ways he would need to adapt in his situation? What do you think?
Area difficulties?
What kind of difficulties is he encountering?
Well, this is like, not safari, but you know what I mean. It's someplace in a hut region.
Yes.
It's very hot, and he's going to need to adapt to the environment around him.
Yes, absolutely. You're both right. If this soldier
I'm sorry,
grew up in
please.
Alaska and all of a sudden he's in this environment, that might be a huge adjustment. So, yes, being in a totally different environment, and
mentally.
Go ahead.
Mentally, he has to psych himself up to be mental. I mean,
Yes, because he's in a situation here where you need to make quick decisions.
right.
Yes, and of course those quick decisions could have life or death consequences. So it's physically challenging, it's emotionally challenging. He may be using new technology that he's never used before. He may be working with people from other cultures or speaking a different language than he's used to. So a lot of different things require him to be flexible in this situation, adaptable. So thank you for those answers. And as we just described, it's clear that there are many ways to be flexible. So one theory for the ways that we can be flexible at work is the JAI, or the Job Adaptability Inventory. So as our example for this, let's just say you've been hired by a bank to work with customers. And we're going to use the JAI components to see how we can be flexible. Okay, so the first one is physical adaptability. And with physical adaptability, we adapt to the physical and environmental conditions around us. So kind of like we said with that example. So if this bank president that you're now working for likes to crank up the air conditioning until you feel like a popsicle, are you going to want to complain when you just started the job? Probably not. If your last job featured nonstop noise, and this bank is really quiet like a library, that may also take some adjustment. Now, technological adaptability is learning new tasks, devices, and procedures. If you've been trained on one program and this bank uses a different one, how quickly can you pick this one up? So with AI being so prominent nowadays, this is very important. Cultural adaptability means understanding others, their values, traditions, political and cultural differences, even personal styles. You may have a customer with different religious beliefs. You may have a coworker with different sexual orientation. Your boss may be extremely laid back, while the boss in your previous job was a micromanager. Part of this is understanding that no culture or style is superior or inferior to any other. It's just different. Workplace adaptability is all about how we handle everyday work stress. If the deadline for a report is moved up, do you curl into a ball and cry? If you don't have the answer to a customer's question, do you tell that customer, go away, I can't help you? These aren't really options if we would like to keep our job. And finally, with uncertainty adaptability, this is where we deal with unpredictable or even emergency situations. If the power goes out, if you have a coworker who has a panic attack, if a customer comes in and pulls out a gun, you would need to remain as calm as possible while responding appropriately and decisively. Flexibility can make us stand out in a job application or in the workplace if we show that we can roll with it. Now, if that last example stressed you out with all those work problems, then resilience is a good skill to have. And a lot of things can cause us stress at work. Low salaries, boredom, excessive work, no opportunity to advance, difficult coworkers, the list goes on. And one of the most stressful activities of all is looking for work. The American Psychological Association tells us that stress takes a toll on our well-being, and chronic stress can result in major health problems. To make it worse, the ways that we often deal with stress, like overeating, smoking, or abusing alcohol, make more problems for us. With all the stress we face, Oprah reminds us, breathe, let go, and remind yourself that this very moment is the only one you know you have for sure. So let's take a look at how we can build our resilience at work. In this picture, we see a truck driver. So my question is, what types of stress might this truck driver encounter on the road? What do we think?
Traffic conditions.
Yes, traffic conditions. We are in South Florida, so we all know the traffic conditions here. What else?
Picking
Truck
up
breaking
loads.
down.
I'm sorry, say it again?
Truck breaking down.
Okay, possible problems
Downtime.
with the truck.
It's
Yep.
sitting for long periods of time.
Yes, sitting for long periods of
Sitting
time.
in that close. Mm-hmm.
And picking up loads,
Patient.
making sure he's on time, picking up his load and dropping off his load.
Yes, making sure that she's picking up everything on time because
Right.
you may be meeting deadlines. So
Right,
yes,
that's
all
his
of
money.
those are
That's
excellent
his money.
answers.
Make
Right,
sure
it's
it's
very
getting
stressful.
rest.
I'm sorry?
Make sure you get rest this time.
Yes, because this is a thing where you may not be eating or sleeping well because you're on the road a lot. These, like we mentioned, the unsafe driving conditions, maybe in that closed compartment, getting lonely, getting bored, etc. So
Sleepy.
Yes, DOT violations too. You gotta go by the
yes,
rules.
of course you're handling a piece of heavy machinery, so you need to be careful that you're doing everything correctly and operating by procedure. So yes, wow, great answers. Okay, we definitely covered that one. So thank you for those. And of course, some jobs are more stressful than others, but no job is going to be stress-free. So as an example of some techniques for resilience, imagine that you are a retail worker at a department store and you have an ongoing problem with messy customers. So keeping track of what causes us stress and how we react to it can help us identify our problems. And that's the first step. So as a department store retail worker, you might react to people messing up your displays by grinding your teeth, or you may notice that you've been clenching your jaw. That might indicate that you're more upset about it than you realize. Now, once we know what's causing stress and our reactions to it, we can figure out healthy ways to respond. So maybe when you see the mess that the customers leave and it gets you angry, you can choose that time to do a physical activity like sorting inventory or breaking down boxes, figuring out what your healthy response is going to be. Now, part of being resilient is learning to have that work-life separation. When your workday ends, try to mentally and emotionally leave the store behind until the next morning. Now, for jobs where people work from home, this is especially important since there's no physical difference between your job and your home. Now, there are plenty of relaxation techniques we can use both on and off the job. When messy customers are having you frustrated, you could do some deep breathing, you could do a quick meditation, a short walk, or a snack. Some of those things might help melt away the anger. course, support is necessary for everyone, whether it is coworkers, family, friends, or even medical professionals. So instead of feeling powerless about your work problems, you could maybe have an honest discussion with your supervisor and brainstorm some ideas together to address the problem. Get some help. We all need support sometimes. Bottom line, work is always going to cause stress, so it's important that we take the time to manage it and build our resilience. And our final skill in this category is related to emotional intelligence, or EI, and it involves getting control of ourselves in every way we can. Motivational author James Allen says, self-control is strength. Right thought is mastery. Calmness is power. So obviously this is easier said than done, but let's break this down into two parts. Okay, in this picture we see police officers, and they are supposed to regulate others by helping people and stopping crimes. Why is it also important that they regulate themselves? What do we think?
What is it?
I'm sorry?
Accountability.
Accountability in what way?
Well, they have people to report to as well. Also, the community will hold them accountable. I mean, not only do they look up to them, they expect them to set the example.
Yes, that's exactly right. Like you said, they have to report to somebody because they're being held accountable. And just a reminder, everyone, if you're not speaking, please mute yourself. So like you said, they have to report to someone, and also they're supposed to be role models for the community. So that means they need to remain calm when they're trying to de-escalate situations, be aware of how their biases may be influencing their interactions. And of course, they don't want to increase someone else's aggression by having incorrect physical responses. So, you know, controlling your own thoughts to rapidly understand potentially dangerous situations as they're unfolding, all of those are elements of regulating yourself. Okay, thank you for that answer. Now, in order for us to function in the workplace without getting into a fight or fired, it is necessary for us to regulate ourselves. So in a high-stress job like being a cashier at a big box store, you would use these skills a lot. I don't know about anyone else, but this picture makes me feel stressed out. Imagine if you're the one cashier and you have this whole line of people waiting for you. So the first skill here is emotion management. And this is controlling the influence of our emotions by monitoring them and learning to adjust them. So as a cashier, you may feel angry or anxious or depressed or passionate or bitter, but you can't allow any of those feelings to interfere with the job functions. Now, this might mean that after identifying our emotions, we may have to temporarily set aside our feelings until we can deal with them in a more appropriate time and place. The other aspect of this is self-control, which is controlling, changing, or getting rid of our thoughts, responses, and actions. So as a cashier, a customer may be swearing at you as they make their purchase, or they may be treating you disrespectfully, or they may be flirting with you. So, okay, everyone unmute yourself because we're going to answer these questions together. Go ahead and unmute yourself. So, is it productive to spend your time thinking about why that customer is swearing so much?
No.
No. Is it professional when someone insults you to be nasty back to them?
Not at all.
No.
No.
And if the customer is hitting on you, is it appropriate to flash that customer?
No.
Yes.
Yes, so thank you for those answers. This is why self-regulation and all the emotional skills we talked about are so important in helping us be the best workers we can be.
It's very hard, Chris. Believe
Yes.
me, it's very hard. Trust me when I tell you.
Yes, and that's why it's so important to work
It's
on.
hard. It's hard.
Yes.
Especially these days. It's like there's no
Yes,
respect.
that's so true.
You know, back in the good old days, there was more respect. Now it's a little different. So.
And
you know,
all we can do is we can each do our part to try and bring that back.
Yes.
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 Exactly. Exactly. Thank you.
Sure. So for the second part of this workshop, we're going to look at these 7 social soft skills. And these are probably the most widely discussed soft skills since they relate to how you interact with people at your job. Now, when we speak about soft skills, communication is often the first term mentioned because it encompasses so many areas. Motivational speaker Jim Rohn reminds us, if you just communicate, you can get by. But if you communicate skillfully, you can work miracles. Communication is at the heart of social interactions and is considered an essential skill in just about every job.
True.
So here we see an auto worker working on a car. This is not typically a job that we think of as a lot of communication, but it actually does. So my question is, what communication skills would this auto worker need to be successful? What do you think? Let's get some folks who haven't said anything yet. I see a ton of people writing stuff in the chat. If some of you can unmute yourself and tell us, that would be great.
Communication, letting the customer know what is next, or making sure the customer
How about
understands.
reporting all
what
the
is
findings
happening.
right away to the customer?
Yes, that is very important. Being able to explain to customers in a way that they will understand. For someone like me, who's not a car person, when I go in and try and say something wrong with my car, I'm using noises to describe it. And so they have to interpret, they have to listen carefully to the problem description, interpret it, and then explain the service to me in a way that I will understand. And they're also reading up any information that they might need to be able to fix the car. And of course, they have to be able to write up those orders accurately. That's very important to all of us. So they're using a lot of different communication skills. Okay, thank you for that answer. This is a really broad topic, so we're kind of using a narrow definition of communication for this training by just looking at the 4 basic elements. The first one is speaking, and with speaking, we want to consider a couple things. Our volume, speaking clearly, varying our dynamic levels to not be boring, and talking at a good pace. If we're too loud or too quiet, or we mumble our words together, or we speak in a monotone, or we talk too slowly, or so fast that people may not really be able to understand what we're saying, that can be a problem. Now, we listen for different reasons. We may be listening for information when our boss is giving directions, or we may be listening to a coworker describe her frustrations, or we may listen to someone trying to sell something to decide whether we should buy it. And we know that listening is different from hearing, because when we're listening, we're thinking about the information. With reading, why we're reading something affects how much we focus on it. So if you are proofreading a memo that's going before the board, that's going to take a much closer read than reviewing a text message that your friend sent you. So think what trouble we can get into when we misread a text from someone, and then think how much more consequential it would be if that happens at work. And finally, we write for a number of purposes as well. So when you send an email, you may be trying to explain something, you may be trying to describe something, or you may be trying to persuade someone. And your style of writing is going to be different for each of those. So although these seem like simple skills, fine-tuning them at home can greatly benefit how we use them in our professional lives. For example, in the job search process, we might speak to the hiring manager, listen to the interviewer, read the job description, and write our cover letter and resume. All important stuff. In addition to communication skills, countless books have been written about teamwork and its value. We tend to assume that if we get along with other people generally, that getting along in the workplace will also be easy. Like with anything else, though, it takes skill to do this well. Patrick Lencioni, an expert on business management, says this: "It is teamwork that remains the ultimate competitive advantage, both because it is so powerful and so rare." Mr. Lencioni is best known for his books on improving teamwork, so we'll take a look at some key qualities for that. Now in this picture we see a factory worker, and we don't see anyone else in the picture, so it looks like she's working alone, but teamwork is still necessary for her to be successful. So even though she's alone, what are some of the ways she may be working with others in this job? What do we think?
maybe getting, asking questions like, when does this have to be done? So
whoever is giving instructions to let her know about deadlines, things like that. And she may be providing parts for other workers down the line. Like you mentioned, someone's going to ship this out. So she needs to do her part correctly so they can as well. So she and other people are mutually assisting each other when needed. She may be part of a workers' union where they are fighting for workers' rights. So even though we don't see it, there's a lot of ways that we work with other people in our job. Okay, thank you for that answer. And being a team player requires several ingredients. In the book, The Ideal Team Player, the table group highlights 3 important qualities that every team player needs, which we see in the little diagram here. So the first one, the C, is true collaboration, which is about being humble, getting rid of our ego, pointing out the contributions of others, sharing credit, and defining success as a team. And the H is hunger. And in this context, being hungry is being willing to take on extra responsibility to help the team, thinking about the next step, and having an eagerness to learn from the group. The last one, the SI, is social intelligence. And this type of intelligence is also called people smarts, and it involves having good judgment and intuition about others and knowing how to work with others effectively. Now, most people are strong in at least one of these, and many people are good at 2 of them, but being strong in all 3 of these characteristics, being collaborative, being hungry about working with the group, and having that social intelligence to work with other people, if we have all 3 of those, we can confidently tell potential employers, I am a good team player. Now, when we work with others, it's inevitable that conflicts will occur, so our negotiation skills are important. Conflict is not necessarily a bad thing either, because disagreements can lead to progress. Conflict resolution expert Kenneth Kay puts it like this: if we manage conflict constructively, we harness its energy for creativity and development. Because employers are cautious about this topic, an interview question we're commonly asked is, how do you handle conflict? So even in jobs where conflict is unlikely, having strong negotiation skills indicates our social intelligence. Now, in this picture, this arbitrator is working with 2 people to settle a professional disagreement, and many different types of disputes may require her to resolve their problem, including disagreements on values, job roles, behaviors, the structure of the organization, or even simple facts. Negotiation in its full definition involves conflict prevention, conflict management, and conflict resolution. We prevent it when we can, manage it as we should, and resolve it as we must. The book Essentials of Negotiation offers some strategies for negotiating conflicts. So for this example, let's suppose that you are an engineer and you're having disagreements with your partner over the design of a project. So we're going to use this process for you to resolve your conflict. And the first step is to create guidelines to make sure that you have rules for your discussion. So maybe you pick a time and place to meet that works for both of you. Maybe you set up a formal agenda for the meeting, creating those guidelines. And next, you will de-escalate tensions by acknowledging that they are there. So maybe you say something like, look, I know things are tense between us, so let's figure it out. And then you want to consider the perspective of the other person. How does your partner view the project? What do they think of your vision for it? And the important thing here is that no one's point of view is necessarily right or wrong. Now, by limiting the issues you discuss, you keep the conversation narrow and focused. The more specific the issues you discuss, the easier it will be to break them down and sort them out. And just to use an example from personal life, if you've ever had an argument with someone about something like taking out the trash, and all of a sudden that argument balloons into everything that you don't like about the other person, you can see why it's important to limit the issues when you're working through a conflict. And you establish commonalities as you build a solution by starting with what you agree on first. So maybe you and your partner like the project's final design, but you're disagreeing about the planning stages, how you're getting there. So start with the common ground. That builds trust and emphasizes the goals that you're both striving towards. And finally, you enable reconciliation by compromising and moving on. Now, you may have some lingering anger or frustration, but that will be for you to work out on your own. Now, if we practice these things in our personal life, it will be easier to negotiate conflicts of your own or of others, and then this sets you up in the workplace as someone who makes progress and contributes to a positive environment. Now, one way to prevent conflict and the need for negotiation is to always respect others. Professional courtesy is one of those things that doesn't take a lot of time, but can make a tremendous difference in how we're perceived and how we perceive others. As Maya Angelou says, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Yes, we are workers, but we are also human beings who are entitled to respect in any job. And especially in the job search process, things like treating everyone we speak to with kindness and following up an interview with a thank you email can be the deciding factor in a hiring choice. Okay, so in this picture we see a server, and we know that most of a server's income is from tips, so that would obviously motivate them to be respectful to diners. Other than tips, though, what reasons would a server have for being respectful? What do we think?
Repeat business.
Repeat business. That's very important. If you are trying to maintain the restaurant's reputation, you want customers coming back. Yes. Anybody else? What's that?
Taking pride in what they do.
Yes, taking pride in what you do. Maybe you have joy in giving people a positive dining experience. And not only that, but that's also good for your job security because you may get good customer reviews. I know when I have a really excellent waiter or waitress, I will ask to speak to the manager and compliment them and just say, you have a great employee here. That's good for their job security as well. So yes, thank you for those answers.
And well growth, because you're dealing with the food industry.
Yes. Of course, you want to be make sure that you are presenting correctly because that's important in the food industry. Yes. So professional courtesy is one of those things that employers don't usually mention explicitly. Maybe they assume it goes without saying, but it's difficult to have a productive workforce without respect. And the partnership group outlines 6 basic reminders to keep the workplace courteous. So we're going to review them by looking at office workers Mr. X and Ms. Q, who are bad employees. So Mr. X punches in on time, but he's always 10 to 15 minutes late to meetings, or he turns in that 2 p.m. report at 3 p.m. Basically, his punctuality is poor, which impacts others. Ms. Q gets email and doesn't respond in a timely manner. Or she receives an assignment from her supervisor and doesn't reply that she received it. She isn't providing acknowledgement of information or communication, which makes more work for others when they need to follow up. Mr. X discusses the salaries of coworkers in the break room, or he mentions something from a customer's private records with other customers around. He is breaking confidentiality rules and may also be breaking laws. Ms. X is constantly on her phone during meetings, or she's making a grocery list when she's supposed to be on monitor duty. She lacks attentiveness, which tells those around her that they aren't valued enough to be worth her time. Mr. X says to the receptionist, "I need that document I requested." And when she hands it to him, he says, "Okay," and walks away. He has forgotten his manners by forgetting to say please and thank you, which makes people feel unappreciated. And finally, Ms. Q voices stereotypes about a coworker's ethnicity, or she makes negative comments about a customer's gender identity. She isn't practicing tolerance, which leaves people feeling disrespected. The bottom line is that a lot of hiring and firing decisions involve someone's likability. So in addition to just being a good person, having that professional courtesy benefits your position too. Other than respecting others, one of the ways we work with others that has the greatest impact is through coaching or training. Depending on our job, we may not necessarily think of ourselves in this role, but every time we share new information, new knowledge, new skills with someone else, we are teaching. Like this quote from an MIT professor says, "You can't teach people everything they need to know. The best you can do is position them where they can find what they need to know when they need to know it." We all have unique contributions we can make to others in the workplace. Now, online instructors like this one and me need many skills to be successful. He needs to be able to display warmth through the screen, understand the technology he's using, hold the attention of the audience, and other things. So to put this into practice, the International Institute for Facilitation has devised 6 things that instructors need to have. So to illustrate this, let's imagine that you are a firefighter and your supervisor has asked you to coach a newly hired worker. So first we want to make sure that we ourselves have the knowledge of everything we need to know in order to explain to the new worker. That makes us a credible authority. Next, we want to have a strong presence so we can command respect, be relatable, and come across as believable to this new employee. Then we want to have a good structure to our training, not overwhelm the new worker by moving too fast, but instead making them feel comfortable and explaining things in an order that makes sense. And once we've established what structure we're going to use, we want to deliver instruction clearly and consistently. So, for example, if we're demonstrating what's appropriate in that workplace, it's very important to deliver that clearly. And also, we want to engage the new worker at all times with different strategies. So people learn in different ways, so keep them interested. And finally, we need to assess the needs of the new worker and adjust our approach when necessary. If something is working, go with it. If it's not working, adjust and find what does work. Now, training employs all of these same skills, the difference being that when you're training, it's a group of people, rather than when you're coaching, it's one-on-one. But remember that anything on our resumes about how we've trained or coached others adds to our marketability. Now, like coaching or training others, holding a leadership position can greatly impact others in the workplace. Despite whether or not we've had or have an official role as a leader, the qualities of leadership are still important to understand and demonstrate. Pioneering TV executive Donald McGannon said, "Leadership is an action, not a position." With that in mind, let's focus on what makes a good leader. Okay, so in this picture, we see a leader running a meeting. How would this leader be able to tell that his leadership is successful? What do we think?
Keeping everyone engaged in what is being discussed.
Yes, keeping everyone engaged. And you can tell if people have their hands up, if they're paying attention, if they're showing excitement about what you're saying. That demonstrates that they are supporting what you're doing as a leader. Yes. Yes, thank you for that answer. If they're loyal to the company, if they feel comfortable speaking to the leader, all of that, those are good indicators. And there are a large number of leadership styles that we can choose to follow. One of the many organizations that outlines some outstanding qualities for leaders is the Center for Internal Change. So we're going to see how their theory of leadership mindsets applies by looking at 2 people. On the left, we have a bar owner who is in a leadership role. And the bartender on the right, who's not in the leadership role, but we're going to see is still going to use leadership skills. So the first mindset is vision, and that's about imagining a better future for the company by being bold, allowing exploration, and testing assumptions. For example, the bartender decides to keep the bar open an hour later on Saturdays, because that's her vision for making it a better place. And the bartender suggests an idea to the owner about having karaoke night every Tuesday. So being bold, allowing exploration, trying something new. The next mindset is alignment, and that's about conveying your vision and committing everyone in that direction by communicating clearly and inspiring others. So for example, if the bar owner is always telling her team it's a team effort, maybe she shows that by cleaning the bathrooms herself, even though she's the boss. Well, the bartender, he might volunteer to cover shifts for a coworker who's having medical issues because he's part of the team. He's aligned with the team. And finally, execution is about ensuring the company will be successful by structuring a plan, making changes, and being receptive to feedback. For example, let's say the bar owner admits that she made a poor scheduling decision and she's open to changing it. And the bartender sees that the company needs someone who understands bookkeeping, so he starts training to learn bookkeeping. So employers are impressed by workers who can harness these mindsets and step into a leadership role, even temporarily, by thinking like a leader. Okay, we are almost out of time, so the final skill we're looking at today involves influencing other people in whatever way we interact with them. This is especially useful when we're trying to influence employers to hire us. Our last quote of this class tells us, influence is getting others to do what you want them to do because they want to do it. As this quote points out, the best way to influence people is to be subtle about it. And we also have to be responsible with how we use our influence on others. So in this picture, we see a fundraiser, and she's looking for financial contributions. So some ways that she can get people to invest in her project are to direct people's emotions in a particular direction, so they're feeling some type of way, focus their thoughts on specific ideas so they get excited and want to keep listening, and most importantly, convince them of the necessity of her project so they want to invest. In Dale Carnegie's famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, he discusses the psychology behind winning people to your way of thinking and increasing your ability to get things done. Like the emotional skill of self-regulation, the social skill of influence is related to EI, or emotional intelligence. So for our final example today, let's imagine that you are a voice teacher, and we're going to show the two components of influence. So the first component, persuasion, is trying to change or direct the feelings of someone else. And this is about influencing the emotions of others. So as a voice teacher, you might be trying to transform your students' shyness into confidence. Or you may be directing a singer towards an emotional interpretation of a song when they perform it. The other part of this, interpersonal regulation, is trying to start, change, or stop certain thoughts and behaviors of others. So you may be changing the singer's mind by having them imagine the music notes in their head, change their thoughts by shaping the way the singer is thinking about breath control, or teach physical changes, like stopping your student from moving their hands too much when performing. And like with all the other social skills that we talked about, it's important to remember that we have a tremendous power to impact others in the workplace and be a positive presence. And that brings us to the end. So right now I'm going to be posting a summary sheet in the chat feature. And the nice thing about this summary sheet is that it lists all the soft skills we talked about today in a checklist format. And it's now posted, by the way, so you can download it. And it does that in a way that you can not only use it when you're looking for a job, but once you have the job, keep coming back to that checklist and see what soft skills you might need to brush up on in order to keep that job. So if you are having trouble downloading that from the chat feature, please note my email address right here, cruggere, C-R-U-G-G-E-R-E, at careersourcebroward.com. You can feel free to send me an email and say, hey, Chris, I took your soft skills, feelings, and people class. I was not able to download the summary sheet. Can you please email it to me? And I will be happy to do that. Okay, and one last thing I'd like to kindly request at this time is that you take our brief workshop survey by using the QR code here. So if you point your phone at that, it should open up the survey. If you're unable to do that, you can also use the URL pictured here, shorturl.at/U3MJ If you type that into a web browser, it will pull up the same survey. So it's a quick survey. It just lets us know some feedback from you about how you think that we're doing, and we do appreciate that. So I would like to thank you very much for your time and attention today. I hope that you found this information valuable, and I wish you the best of luck with getting and keeping that next job. And please be reassured that CareerSource Broward is here to help you now and in the future. You can go ahead and check out our website and our social media for scheduled workshops, such as the companion class to this, Soft Skills, Body and Mind, and further updates regarding our services. So thank you again. I hope that everyone has a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mhm.
This was a great workshop. Awesome.